A rage that lasts 2,500 years. A rage frozen, sealed beneath permafrost, waiting. It is not a legend. It is a reality. In 2003, a devastating 7.3 magnitude earthquake rocked the Altai Republic in Siberia. Mountains collapsed, homes were destroyed, and people panicked. But amid the chaos, the indigenous elders of Altai didn't look at each other in surprise. They looked at each other in fear and exclaimed, "She's angry." Who was she? Not a god, but a flesh and blood woman. A body dug up from its icy grave 10 years earlier. A body the locals had begged scientists never to touch. They called her Princess Ukok, but she was no princess. She was something much older, more powerful, and more terrifying. She was a shaman, a protector, and when her tomb was violated, it was believed she unleashed a curse. This is not a story of gold or kings. This is a story of a naked, macabre truth, perfectly preserved in ice. A story of mysterious tattoos, an ancient cancer, and the rage of a long-dead woman whose fury still seems to shake the earth. Our story begins in one of the most isolated places on the planet, the Ukok Plateau. Located in the southernmost part of Siberia, it is a vast, windswept steppe sandwiched between the borders of 4 countries: Russia, China, Kazakhstan, and Mongolia. The indigenous Altai people call it the land of the sky, or the navel of the earth. They believe it is a sacred land, a celestial steppe where souls rest and a direct gateway to the underworld. For thousands of years, this land was home to a mysterious warrior nomad people the Greeks called the Scythians, or more specifically, the Pazyryk culture. They were master horsemen, fearsome warriors, and artisans who created exquisite works of art in gold. They did not build cities, they lived and died on horseback. And when they died, they were buried in massive stone and earthen burial mounds called kurgans. But the Ukok Plateau has a secret. It sits 2,500 meters above sea level. Summers here are short and harsh. Winters are long and brutal. The ground is permanently frozen, and it is this permafrost that just happens to be the perfect time machine. In the summer of 1993, Russian archaeologist Dr. Natalia Polosmak led an expedition to Ukok. She wasn't looking for a princess. She was studying ancient migration routes. The area was a military border buffer zone, nearly inaccessible without special permission. One day, a local border guard pointed out a cluster of kurgans that appeared to have been looted long ago. Most archaeologists would have passed them by. Looted tombs were often worthless. But Polosmak noticed something odd: the location of the tomb. It was in a lower, damper area than the others. She had a hunch. She and her team began to dig. The rock and soil above was hard. As they dug deeper, they hit something. Not treasure, ice, solid ice. They had no equipment to work with ice. They had to pour buckets of hot water slowly, bit by bit, melting the ancient ice millimeter by millimeter. It was torture, meticulous, dirty work. As the ice melted, a strong scent rose up. Not the stench of decay, but herbal, resinous, something preserved. First, they found 9 horses, 9 magnificent war horses, fully equipped with saddles, bridles, and elaborately decorated masks. They had been ritually killed, their heads facing east, to escort their masters to the afterlife. This large-scale sacrifice suggested that the tomb's owner was a person of extremely high status. But where is the owner? They kept digging. Beneath the horses, they found a wooden chamber, and inside that chamber was a coffin. But it was unlike any coffin they had ever seen. It was hewn from a single giant larch tree, large enough to hold a man. The coffin was sealed shut with bronze bolts. When they opened the lid, their hearts stopped. The coffin was filled with a crystal-clear block of ice, and suspended inside that block of ice, like an insect, trapped in amber, was a human body. It took them days, using warm water and endless patience, to melt the ice without damaging the contents. Slowly, a shape emerged. It was a woman, lying on her side, her legs drawn up as if sleeping. Her skin was pale, but completely intact. Her golden hair had been shaved. When the ice melted, they gently lifted her out. She had died at about 25 years old, and she was unlike anyone they had ever seen. The first thing that caught their eyes was not her clothes, but her skin. Her skin was covered in tattoos. These were not simple tribal symbols. These were intricate, dark blue, animal-style artworks done by a master. On her left shoulder, a complex mythical creature coiled. It was a deer, but it had the beak of a griffin, and its antlers grew into smaller griffin heads. A griffin deer, a creature of 2 worlds, earth and sky. It was said to be a psychopump, a creature that guided souls. On her arms, down to her fingers, were images of jaguars, mountain sheep, and other mythical creatures fighting, intertwined. The tattoos were more than decoration. They were a map of the universe, a visual language of her spiritual power. They were her passport to the underworld and a symbol of her power over the animal spirits. The technique was also excruciating. Needles made from bone or thorns, dipped in soot mixed with fat, and pierced through the skin thousands of times. The pain was a ritual in itself. Then they looked at what she was buried with. On her head, she wore a horsehair wig, skillfully sewn into a felt cap. But on top of that was something amazing, a top hat nearly 1 meter, about 3 feet high. It was made of felt, covered in wood, and decorated with 15 wooden birds, delicately wrapped in gold leaf, sewn into the cap. At the top was a symbol of the tree of life. This was not a crown. This was something like a spiritual antenna, a tool for connecting with the heavens. She was wearing a cream-colored silk robe. Silk! In the middle of the Siberian steppe 2,500 years ago. Subsequent analysis confirmed that the silk was raw silk, not from China, but possibly from India or Persia. This revealed the Pazyryk people's incredible global trade network. Over this, she wore a long woolen cloak and knee-high felt boots decorated with intricate patterns. Beside her was a bag, but it wasn't a bag. It looked like a shaman's toolkit. Inside was a mirror, not glass, but a polished bronze disc set in an intricately carved wooden frame. In the ancient world, mirrors weren't for dressing up. They were tools for divination, for looking into the future, or for communicating with the spirit world. And next to the mirror was something that explained a lot. A small stone box filled with coriander seeds, a very exotic spice at the time. And most importantly, a small stone incense burner, inside of which were still traces of burned cannabis seeds. The Greek historian Herodotus once wrote of the Scythians that they inhaled the smoke from smoldering hemp seeds and howled with joy. But this discovery suggests another purpose. This wasn't for recreation. This was medicine. And that brings us to the core mystery of this woman. She was not a warrior. Her muscles were not developed for horseback riding or fighting. She was not a princess in the literal sense. So who was she? Her body was flown by helicopter in a frozen state to Novosibirsk, the scientific hub of Siberia, where a team of scientists, pathologists, and imaging experts performed a modern-day autopsy. They put her in an MRI machine, and what they found changed the story completely. It turned an archaeological mystery into a human tragedy. This 25-year-old woman is very sick. The scans showed a large tumor in her right breast. It was breast cancer, stage 4. The disease had metastasized. Secondary tumors had spread to her spine and lungs. She must have been in unimaginable, chronic pain for the last months, even years of her life. But that's not all. They also found evidence of multiple injuries. She had a dislocated shoulder and a fractured skull. These injuries occurred shortly before her death. Scientists have reconstructed her final days. She, a young woman dying of cancer, was probably severely depressed. She may have fallen from a horse. The fall, to a body ravaged by disease, was fatal. She did not die immediately. She was brought home and lived in pain for several more months before passing away. And suddenly, everything became clear. The cannabis in her grave wasn't for flying. It was the most powerful painkiller the ancient world had. It was used to ease her terrible cancer pain. But why would a nomadic tribe, where survival depended on physical strength, devote so many resources, 9 war horses, imported silks, golden headdresses, to a young, sick, crippled woman? The answer was chilling. They did not bury her despite her illness. They buried her with such respect because of her illness. In many ancient shamanic cultures, including the Scythians, illness was not seen as a weakness. It was seen as a divine mark. A person suffering from extreme physical pain, or one experiencing hallucinations due to illness or drugs, was believed to be in a state of limbo, 1 foot in this world, 1 foot in the spirit world. Her cancer, her pain, and perhaps her marijuana-induced hallucinations were all seen as proof that she was the chosen one. She was a medium. She could speak to the dead, see the future, and control spirits. She's not a princess. She's a shaman, a sorceress. Her intricate tattoos are symbols of her power. Her tall hat is her working tool. Her mirror is her portal, and her 9 horses are her entourage to escort such a powerful spirit to the afterlife. They buried her on the sacred Ukok Plateau, sealing her in ice, not only to preserve her, but also so that she could continue her work from the other side, protecting their land, keeping the world in balance, and guarding the Dirtana. Navel of the Earth, she is a watchman. And then, in 1993, Natalia Polasmak took her away. The reaction from the native Altai people was almost immediate. They were not delighted by the scientific discovery. They were horrified. The tribe's elders declared that the scientists had committed a terrible taboo. They said that the woman in the ice was not Princess Ukok. Her real name, they said, was Kaiden. They said she was Ak Kaiden, white woman, a sacred ancestor, a royal priestess who had voluntarily sacrificed herself to protect the earth from evil spirits from the underworld. They believe her grave is a gate. She was placed there to guard the gates of hell. And by removing her body, scientists left that gate unguarded. Scientists in Novospirit dismissed this as superstition. They kept her body in a special cryogenic laboratory, studied her DNA, and reconstructed her face. They treated her as a priceless scientific specimen. And then, things started to go wrong. A series of disasters hit Altai. Unusual floods, uncontrollable wildfires, a spike in suicides in the region. And then, in September 2003, exactly 10 years after she was taken, a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck. It was the strongest earthquake in the region's recorded history. Its epicenter? Very near the Ukok Plateau. To the Altai, this was undeniable proof. Kidin was angry. She was punishing them for failing to protect her. A powerful political and spiritual movement has emerged, demanding the return of the princess. They say the social, economic, and even climatic instability in the region is due to her absence. Send her home, they plead, before it is too late. The war dragged on for decades. Scientists argued that returning the body would destroy it. Studying it was for the good of humanity. The Altai responded that the good of humanity was not worth their destruction. Finally, in 2012, after enormous political pressure, the body of the Ice Princess was returned to the Altai Republic. But she was not reburied. She is housed in a special mausoleum museum in the capital city of Gorno-Altaisk. She is kept in an advanced cryogenic chamber and is only displayed to the public on certain new moons, a strange compromise between science and spirituality. But for many Altai elders, this was not enough. She had not returned to the earth. She had not returned to her grave on the Ukok Plateau. The gate remained open, and her wrath had not been appeased. The story of the Altai Ice Princess is a chilling mystery not just because of her 2,500-year-old tattoos or her strange headdress. It's chilling because it's still ongoing. It raises a terrifying question. What happens when modern science collides head-on with an ancient belief? And is it possible that a long-dead woman trapped in ice still has the power to wreak havoc on our world? The Altai people believe they are trying to appease a powerful ancestral spirit. They fear the power of the dead. But elsewhere, at another time, there were people who did not fear the dead. They did not seek to appease the gods or spirits. They sought to command them. They sought to turn the wandering spirits, the gods of the underworld, into their personal weapons. From the frozen steppes of Siberia, we travel to the heart of the most civilized empire, Rome, where, hidden beneath its marble temples and lavish public baths, a dark, macabre practice of magic was practiced daily, a practice that turned jealousy, hatred, and ambition into deadly curses. And unlike the tomb of the Altai princess, these curses were written specifically for you. Part 2. The Nails of Hell, Roman. From the frozen steppes of Siberia, where people tried to appease a powerful ancestral spirit, we travel to the heart of arguably the most civilized empire, Rome. When we think of Rome, we think of the great Colosseum, of Roman law, of philosophers and master engineers who built the aqueducts that lasted. We think of a society, but that's just the surface. Imagine you're walking down a cobblestone street in Rome, or perhaps in a remote outpost of the empire in Britain around 200 AD. Around you, life goes on. Peddlers, toga-clad senators, soldiers patrol. But hidden in the dark alleys, in the gloomy temples, and beneath the freshly dug tombs, a very different business is going on. A business of hatred, jealousy, and black magic. In Rome, people didn't just fear the dead, they sought to command them. They sought to turn angry spirits and gods of the underworld into their personal weapons. And that weapon has a name: Defixio. In Latin, defixio means to bind or to crucify. Today, archaeologists simply call them curse tablets. They were found everywhere, thousands of them. They weren't found in royal libraries. They were pulled from the bottom of holy wells, pried from temple walls, and most horrifyingly, found hidden inside ancient tombs. So, what does a defixio look like? It is not a precious scroll written in gold ink. It is something cheap, crude, and malevolent. It is usually a thin sheet of lead. Why lead? Because lead is the metal of the underworld. It is cold, it is heavy, it is toxic. In ancient alchemy, it was associated with Saturn, the god of death and time. When you hold a sheet of lead, you are holding a piece of the underworld. And this is how a curse is created. First, you take a thin sheet of lead and a sharp needle. You carve your curse on it. The language used is not the flowery Latin of poets. It is vulgar Latin, the language of the streets, full of anger and magical terms borrowed from Greek, Egyptian, and Hebrew. But you don't just write, you have to perform the ritual. To bind a victim, you must magically confuse them. The most common way? Write the victim's name backwards. If you wanted to curse someone named Marcus, you would write Sucrum. If you want a stronger curse, you can write the entire spell backwards, from right to left. Or you can write it in a spiral curling inwards like a snake, so that the victim's mind is also twisted and unable to escape. Then you will call upon the gods, but not Jupiter or Apollo, the gods of light. You will call upon the forces of darkness, the chthonic gods. You will write, O Queen of the Underworld, Persephone. O Hecate, goddess of crossroads and witchcraft. O Pluto, devourer of souls. And most importantly, you will call upon the demons, the wandering souls, the ghosts of those who died young, violently. You are giving them a quest. What is that mission? This is where the individual cruelty of man is laid bare. Take a real-life example found in the city of Bath, England, at the sacred baths of the goddess Sulis Minerva. A Roman named Documedes had his bathrobe stolen while he was bathing. He was furious. He made a curse tablet, threw it into the sacred spring, and wrote, To the goddess Sulis, I give to your goddess the wicked man who stole my bathrobe. Do not allow that man or woman sleep, eat, or be healthy until he brings that bathrobe to your temple. Please take his mind and his eyes. Another curse from the same location, also for lost property, reads, I curse the one who insulted me. May his blood, intestines, liver, and lungs be eaten away. They don't just want their property back, they want physical destruction. But jealousy is the most powerful motivator. Many of the curse cards are love curses, but this is not a plea for romantic love. This is possessiveness, coercion, and it is extremely creepy. One man, rejected by a woman, wrote, I bind Theodora. Bind her tongue so she cannot speak. Bind her mind so she cannot refuse me. Bind her, expletive, so she cannot have relations with anyone else. Burn her heart, her liver, her soul with the fire of love for me. Do not let her eat, sleep, or drink until she willingly leaves her father's house and comes to me and never leaves me. These curses turn love into a disease, a torture. And then there's the competition. Chariot races in Rome were as frenzied as football is today. Green fans would do anything to bring down the Reds. They wouldn't just cheer, they would curse. Archaeologists have found curse tablets hidden in racecourses that read, I bind the horses of the Reds, blind their eyes, overturn their chariots. I bind the charioteer's name, bind his hands, his feet, his sinews. When he turns a corner, let his mind go blank, let his hands tremble, let him crash into the wall. O demons, pull him down. Even the legal system is not spared. Are you facing trial? Why rely on evidence when you can rely on magic? Cards have been found cursing opposing lawyers. I bind the lawyer's tongue. When he stands before the judge, let him be silent. Let him forget the accusations. Let his mind be confused. Let him lose the case. Once the curse is written, the final step is to send it. You can't just leave it in your pocket. You have to send it to the underworld. Method 1. Throw it down a well. The ancients believed that deep wells and springs were gateways directly to the underworld. They would throw the cursed card down, letting the water carry it to the gods. The second way, nail it. That's right, after they've engraved the curse, they'll roll up the lead plate and then pierce it with a nail, usually an iron nail, the metal of war and blood. This piercing action is a simulation of magic. They're crucifying the victim, paralyzing them. Then they'll secretly nail the nail and plate to the wall of a temple, usually a temple of Hecate or Mercury, the spirit guide. But the most gruesome, powerful method is reserved for the most insidious curses, using a grave. But not just any grave. You have to find a grave of someone who died recently, and preferably a grave of someone who died young or violently. In Greek, they were called aioi, those who died before their time, or biodinatoi, those who died by violence, as in murder, suicide, or gladiator. The Romans believed that these spirits could not rest in peace. Trapped between two worlds, they roamed the earth, filled with anger, resentment, and jealousy towards the living. Because of this anger, they became the perfect messengers of a curse. At night, the curser, or a hired shaman, would sneak into the cemetery. They would find a new grave. They would dig a small hole, insert the punctured lead plate, usually as close to the body as possible, and cover it with dirt. This is no longer a plea. This is a contract, a dark contract. The contents of the card would read, "O spirit of, name of deceased, I entrust to you, name of victim. Do not leave him alone until you do this for me. As you are cold and useless, make his limbs cold and useless." They are turning the angry spirit of a recently deceased person into a demonic hound to attack their enemies. What's the scariest thing? This isn't a secret cult. This is a popular service. If you're too rich or too scared to do it yourself, you can go to a magus. You pay him some money, he has secret spell books, he knows the names of the most powerful demons from Egypt, Persia, he will write a curse for you. Black magic has been commercialized. Thousands of these tablets have been found, from the deserts of Egypt to the walls of Britain, from the amphitheaters of Carthage to the villas of Greece. This means that beneath civilized Roman society, there was a constant undercurrent of personal hatred, jealousy, and psychic violence. Neighbors curse each other for noise, shopkeepers curse competitors, discarded lovers curse each other to death. So what do these two stories, one from the frozen Siberian steppes, one from the heart of the Roman Empire, tell us? They reveal a universal, terrifying truth about the ancient world. The dead were not seen as gone. The afterlife was not in the clouds or some faraway place. It was right here, right beneath the soil we walk on, right in the water. We drink right in the grave at the end of the road. The spirit world is real. It has real power, and it can touch our world. The only question the ancients asked was, are you trying to appease that power, or are you trying to weaponize it? From the frozen rage of an Altai sorceress whose anger could still shake the earth, to thousands of personal grudges nailed to lead plates, waiting for wandering spirits to execute. The mystery is not whether magic is real. The mystery is how far people are willing to go when pushed to the limit. And when we unearth these tablets, read these curses, we realize something horrifying. More than 2,000 years have passed. Technology has changed. Empires have fallen. But the jealousy, the hatred, the primal fear, they remain.